Deep dives and blue skies. Welcome back to Talking Blue with Nick, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Talking Blue, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find. Today, I'm your host, Nick. You're listening to episode 43 of Talking Blue. Today, we have a good show for you guys. Today, we're going to recap the first half of the season for the Dodgers. Isn't it crazy? We're already through one full half of the season. We're actually through more than half of the season, of course, because the Dodgers have played more than 81 games. But it's the All-Star break. It's currently Monday, but we'll be watching the Home Run Derby tonight, All-Star game tomorrow. So it's currently the All-Star break, which means the first half is done, which means it's time to recap all of that stuff. So we didn't talk about the Dodgers-Giants series that just ended. I'll quickly go over that. Then we'll get into some stuff, first half recap, and stuff like that. So as always, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of the videos dropping. You can follow us on social media at Talking Blue Pod. I've been getting a lot of followers on TikTok. I'm almost to 1,000, so keep following me, guys. I really appreciate that. I'm going to have a bunch of videos coming out, dropping throughout this All-Star break since we'll have no Dodger stuff to watch. Follow us on Reddit, competitive-week8715. Like I said, all social media, X, Instagram, TikTok, and then on YouTube, we'll have YouTube Shorts coming. So a lot of stuff coming out. So, like I said, today we're going to recap the first half. The Dodgers finish up the first half at 58-39. That is the second best record in all of baseball, one game behind the Tigers, and then first in the National League. So Dodgers, of course, are in first place in the NL West. So quickly, I just wanted to recap the Dodgers-Giants series. We all knew the Dodgers were coming into the weekend series. Lost 6 in a row, most, I believe, since 2019. They played the first game in San Francisco, and, of course, they lost. So that losing streak got to 7 games. Dustin May got rocked earlier in the game, gave up a bunch of runs. Dodgers did battle back, so I credit them there. Put up some runs. Michael Conforto hit a home run. Shohei hit a home run in that game. Some other big hits had them lose by 1 run in the 9th inning. Kind of an unfortunate game in terms, like, from a fan's perspective. When your team is getting blown out, one thing you don't want is like a false hope comeback. I always see that on Twitter, the "don't give me hope" meme. It's true. You don't like your team puts up some runs and now you get your hopes up that you might actually come back and win the game, and it doesn't happen. But I actually tweeted out after that loss that the Dodgers will win the next 2 games and they'll come out of the break hot. I got the first part of that right. The Dodgers did win the next 2 games. We'll see if they come out of the break hot. They won on Saturday, a 2-1 game. Shohei pitched his 5th start, I believe. Continued to look dominant. 3 shutout innings. I think he had 4 strikeouts. Throwing 100 miles an hour once again. Then the Dodgers actually won a crazy game on Sunday. Not a lot of great stuff. Tanner Scott blew a save. His league-leading 7th blown save. Had a 2-0 lead. 2-run homer to tie it in the 9th. Dodgers actually didn't score in extra innings in the 10th inning, so it was looking like a bleak series loss, blown save, couldn't even score in the 10th inning. Luckily, in some miracle, the Giants didn't score in the bottom of the 10th. Come back in the 11th. The luck comes onto the Dodger side. A lot of bloop hits. I think Giants made 1 error as well. Dodgers made it 5-2, and then they won the game. I think it was Ben Kasparius that closed it out, so they were able to pull off that win. Kind of a miracle. Again, kind of one of those games that I wouldn't say you feel great about, but when you're in the midst of a huge losing streak and not playing well, playing pretty much your worst baseball of the year, you're going to take any win and any kind of silver lining. So at the end of the day, the Dodgers win 2 games to go into the break. So hopefully that bad stretch is behind them. They really just needed the break regardless of wins or losses. They needed that break badly. But at least you can go in there saying you won the 2 games. So the way we're going to kind of do this episode, first half recap, I'm just gonna babble on about kind of the season, the way it's gone so far as a team, and then we're gonna talk about like individual players. I kind of have it grouped into the best players in the first half, in the middle, kind of guys who have been good at times, bad at times, need to see improvements, which are pretty much all the players that have performed bad, whether it's by their standards or just bad by anyone's standards. And then I have incomplete, which are mostly guys that have been injured, as well as guys that we haven't seen too much of, kind of like Dalton Rushing or Haesung Kim, some bench guys. So those will be my little groupings. Best players in the first half, in the middle players, need to see improvements, and then incomplete. So before we do that, I just wanted to talk about Dodgers as a whole. So I put this out on X. I did a little bit of research, and I was able to come to a couple of winning and losing points throughout the season for the Dodgers and how they kind of got to this first half record. So we all know that the Dodgers began the season 8-0. They won their first 8 games. They went on the road to play the Phillies, and they were undefeated up until that point. Then from there, from April 4th to May 8th, which is, I believe, 30 games, they went 17-13. So at that point, their record is 25-13. So that's a pretty good stretch. I know that 17-13 is only 4 games over 500, I think. But again, when you go over 500 for a 30-game stretch, and then you put on top of that an 8-0 stretch, that's a really good record. 25-13 probably was the best record in the game at that point, if not, one of the two or three best records. From May 9th to June 7th, I believe that is like a 27-game stretch. The Dodgers went 13-14, so they were 1 game under 500. At that point, their record as a whole is 38-27. So they're 11 games over 500, which by the Dodgers standards is not crazy, but it's still really early in the year, only early June. But 13-14 is a pretty large sample size. That was the stretch. The Dodgers played the Mets on the road, lost 2 out of 3. They also played the Cardinals, lost 2 out of 3. I believe that was when they got swept by the Angels. So there was a lot of not so great baseball. But like I said, up until that point, they were 25-13. So a 13-14 record's not going to tank your season or anything like that. So then June 8th to July 3rd, which is pretty recent. I think that's a 23-game sample. Dodgers went 18-5. So one of their best stretches of baseball throughout the entire season. That puts the record up to 56-32 going into July 4th when they played the Astros. So at that point, they had the best record in baseball, actually by a game or two over the Tigers. By far the best record in the NL. When I say by far, it wasn't by far by like 5 or 6 games, but they had a comfortable 3-4 game lead in terms of best record. Then, of course, pretty much their worst stretch of baseball throughout the season. From July 4th to July 13th, which was yesterday, they go 2-7. So that puts their overall record to 58-39, which is where they're at right now at the end of the All-Star break. Like I said, they came off that really hot stretch, 56 wins. They only add 2 more wins. So it's unfortunate. 56 wins going into that Houston series. So you have 3 more series to get to 60 wins before the All-Star break. So I remember thinking Dodgers are going to easily get to 60 wins before the All-Star break. Probably have like 65 wins, something like that. They finished with 58 because they only won 2 games. So that was a really tough stretch to get to. I obviously did a couple podcasts throughout that. So that's kind of where the Dodgers are at now. Started off the season really hot to get to 25-13. Pretty good. Went through a pretty mid stretch. Again, 13-14. It's not a crazy bad record. You're 1 game under 500. Then the Dodgers played some of their best baseball, took advantage of some bad teams like Colorado, as well as the White Sox. But then they played well against other teams as well. I think they played the Yankees in that stretch. They played the Padres multiple times and beat them. And then I think the Mets are included in that, where they split a series. So they played some good teams, took advantage of some bad teams, played well. Then this last stretch really hurt them. In terms of having a pretty dominant record, of course it hasn't hurt them on the standings. They did have like a 9-game lead about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Now I think it's down to 5.5. So at the end of the day, half a season is done. Dodgers have the best record in the NL, second best record in all of baseball, first place in the National League West. Those are all good things. They have one of the best offenses in baseball. Up until this bad stretch where they were 2-7, they pretty much were the best offensive team in baseball. Where they have not been as good is on the pitching side. They have one of the worst ERAs in terms of starting pitching ERA and bullpen ERA. Again, a lot of that is because of the injuries and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, that's where they're at. So they haven't been a great pitching team to start the year in the first half. So that's pretty much where the Dodgers are at as a whole and as a team. Ton of injuries. Guys will come back. I'm going to talk about a lot of that stuff and like different parts of the team at the end of the video. So that's where the Dodgers are at. That is some of their hot stretches, some of their cold stretches. That's kind of how they got to where they're at now, going into the All-Star break. So now we're going to get to those individual players. Of course, I'm not going to talk about every player individually, every guy on the roster and stuff like that. But we'll go from, like I said, best players in the first half, in the middle, need to see improvements, and complete. So, of course, best players in the first half. I have them. I don't have them numbered, but from the first guy I have to the last guy of each list is kind of in order of best players. I think it's not exact or an exact science, but of course at the top I have Shohei Ohtani. He's pretty much been the Dodgers' best. He's been the Dodgers' best all-around player. Of course, he's a two-way player, so that kind of makes him the best player in the league. But pretty much has most of the best offensive numbers on the team. In terms of like weighted runs created plus, which is an overall hitting stat, he actually is a couple points behind Will Smith. But a little bit of that is because he has way more at-bats than Will Smith. So the less at-bats you have with really good numbers, it kind of boosts your numbers up. Not to say that Will Smith is not is getting lucky or anything like that. But Will Smith has 301 plate appearances. Shohei has 438. So he has way more plate appearances. So that's a little bit why some of those numbers are better. But Shohei Ohtani has 32 home runs. I think that's the most home runs he's had at the All-Star break. He's hitting 276, 382 on base, 605 slug. I believe he has an OPS right under 1,000. So, and then obviously we know he's been pitching as of late, and he's looked really dominant. So he's the Dodgers' best player. We all know that. Then I have Will Smith. He's been incredible this year. If it wasn't for Cal Raleigh, he would be the best catcher in baseball. Cal Raleigh is just having like probably the greatest season by a catcher of all time. I think Kyle Raleigh has like 38 home runs before the All-Star break, which is one behind Barry Bonds. Will Smith's been incredible. He's been the best hitter in baseball with runners in scoring position. He's hitting for more power as of late. 12 home runs on the year. Like I said, the Dodgers have been very careful with his playing time, but he's hitting 323, which I'm pretty sure leads the National League, with an on-base percentage well over 400. So he's got a weighted runs created plus of 171. So by far is having the best season of his career. He's an all-star. He's been playing amazing. So the Dodgers have really benefited from him having this incredible season. Then third, I have Andy Pages. We know Andy Pages. We know the story. Got off to a really bad start offensively and kind of defensively. And he's turned it around completely. Has been a little bit cold as of late. But on the season, Andy Pages, as an everyday player, playing mostly center field. Occasionally, he plays the corner spots. Andy Pages is hitting 285 with a 325 on base, 479 slugging percentage. He's got 3 WAR on the season, so he's mounted to 3 wins on the season. He has 17 home runs, so I think Andy Pages is only 24 years old, 23. He's going to have more than 20 home runs in his second season, really first full-time season. It's his second season. He played a good amount last year. So he's been amazing for the Dodgers. And especially where their outfield defense has kind of been bad this year, he helps improve a lot of that. Then I have Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Of course, he's been the Dodgers' ace from day one. We all know that. Can't say enough about Yamamoto. We'll see what happens the postseason when some guys come back and Shohei and all that stuff. But on the year, Yamamoto has a 2.59 ERA. That is 11th in all of baseball. So Yamamoto's been amazing. Then after that, I have Max Muncy. We know he just got injured, but another guy like Paz got off to a really slow start. He actually got off to a slow start more than Andy Paz. Paz was kind of just bad up in like 3/4 of the way of April. Muncy was still kind of bad into early May, but he was incredible. Of course, he recently just got injured, so eventually he's going to fall off some of the qualifying numbers in terms of like all the numbers you see when you see batting average, on base, and stuff. But on the year, Max Muncy was hitting 250 with a 375 on base, 455 slug, 13 home runs, a 16.2% walk percentage. So he was just playing incredible up until he got hurt. Dodgers will probably see him come the end of August. Then after that, Alex Vesia. He's been the Dodgers' best reliever. Some guys have been struggling. He's been incredible. Then I have Jack Dreyer. I didn't want to leave him out. He's been very good. It's kind of funny. I feel like I never get to see Jack Dreyer pitch anymore. Seems like Dodgers haven't used him a lot lately. And then I threw on Clayton Kershaw at the end. He's only thrown in 50 innings. But other than Yamamoto, if you think about Snell and Glasnow being injured, Sasaki eventually went down. We just saw Glasnow come back, and then Kershaw hasn't thrown in that many innings. Then you think about guys like Dustin May, who have thrown all year, but he hasn't been good. Kershaw's probably been the Dodgers' best pitcher, second best pitcher so far, so he deserves a lot of credit. So those are the guys I have in best players in the first half. Some offensive players, some pitchers, some starters, some relievers. Then I'll go to in the middle players. Now, I have Freddie Freeman at the top. Now, Freddie Freeman does deserve to be in the Dodgers' best players. I just want to say I don't think he's played bad or anything like that. Because when you go to weighted runs created plus leaders for the Dodgers, like I said, you have Will Smith is first, Shohei is second, Hae-Sung Kim is third, but of course he's only played in 48 games compared to the other guys. Max Muncy, who's played in 81 games, just got injured. He's been the Dodgers. If you take out Hae-Sung Kim, he's basically been the third best hitter. After that, you have Freddie Freeman with a weighted runs created plus of 134. The only reason I have him in the middle is because we know Freddie's struggled for a really long time now. Now, he has been better as of late, but we know in the month of June, that was probably the worst month of his career, and he was horrible. And he hasn't turned it on in the month of July in a way that you'd love to see. He hasn't been super hot, but he's played better. And on the year, like I said, Freddie Freeman, who I think is 35 years old at this point, he's hitting 297 with a 365 on base, 476 slug. That gives him a weighted runs created plus of 134. He's got 10 homers on the year. He's amounted to almost 2 wins of WAR. So he's had a very nice year. It's just come down. We know earlier in the year, Freddie Freeman was looking like he was having a career year. He was hitting like 350, 360, hitting for more power. Since then, he's barely hit any home runs. Again, I've talked about this before, like early in the year. One thing you hate to see is when players kind of battle through injuries. I'll talk about this with Teoscar and Tommy Edman, some other guys. When you see guys kind of battle through injuries, sometimes when it comes to injuries, the best thing you want is you don't want injuries kind of in the middle. You want guys to either have an injury and you're just out or be completely healthy. Obviously, that's not the case. Guys always battle through little things. But when you kind of battle through little injuries, that will sometimes tank your numbers, and guys will kind of have a down year. I do believe it went under the radar, but we all know what Freddie's dealt with his ankle. But I do think earlier in May or June, Freddie had a sore quad or hamstring, or it was something like that. So I don't know if he's been nursing that ever since this. But so the only reason I have him in the middle is because I want to see Freddie turn it on in the second half and have his numbers look a little bit better, especially because Freddie is hitting in the 3 spot. There's been a little bit more swing and miss. He hasn't been as good with runners in scoring position, it feels. There's a lot of at-bats where you need to see Freddie put the ball in play, and he either strikes out. So I think he's good. I know he's going to be fine because he's Freddie Freeman. The only reason I have him in the middle is because he has not been good for a little bit now. It's been a little bit since we've seen the Freddie Freeman that we know. But it's kind of funny because, like I've always talked about, Freddie Freeman's incredible. There are times where he looks a little bit lost and defeated at the plate. So I know he's going to be fine. There's no doubt he's one of the best hitters in the game, and he's going to be ready come postseason. But he has struggled for a little bit, so that's why I have him in the middle players. But of all these guys, like I said, he's been at the top. So he's at the top because I think he really deserves to be in best players. So he's kind of the only guy I have in both. So then after that, I have Teoscar Hernandez. So Teoscar Hernandez on the year, I kind of hadn't noticed he kind of goes under the radar in terms of slumping. Usually, the guys that get talked about in terms of slumping, like I said, are Freddie since he slumped, and then Mookie Betts. Teoscar kind of goes under the radar, I think, because more people lately have paid attention to his defense. But on the year, Teoscar is hitting 256 with a 290 on base, a 461 slug. That gives him a weighted runs created plus of 107. So he actually has not been much above league average this year. Last year, Teoscar had a career year. He had an weighted runs created plus in the 130s, hit, I think, over 30 home runs. He's got 14 this year. He's another guy who had the hamstring injury. I think that happened in Miami when I was there. Then he came back actually pretty quick. It looked like it was going to be bad. He actually did come back pretty quick, which is a good sign. But, again, another guy that I wonder if he's dealt with, coming back from that injury. He's been pretty quiet for a while now. So he's a guy that, again, I would like to put him in need to see improvements, because I do need to see improvements. But at the end of the day, he got off to a really good start before he got hurt. He still had an OPS in the 800s, I believe. But he does need to be better defensively. I still not sure why the Dodgers continue to play him in right and not left. I think that later in the year, trade deadline, stuff like that, we'll see guys move around. But he's been bad defensively in right, one of the worst defensive outfielders. And when you're not going to hit like he did last year, becomes a huge negative. Again, the only reason I didn't put him in a little bit lower category is because he has been good at times this season, and although his numbers look bad now, a lot of that has been tanked by the bad stretch he's had. If he gets hot for a couple weeks, his numbers will start to look like they normally do. So then after that, two relievers, Ben Kasparius, Kirby Yates. Ben Kasparius I still believe in, and I think that he's had a very good rookie season. But as of late, we all know he hasn't been as good, and his ERA actually tanked up to over 4. So on the year, Ben Kasparius in the first half had an ERA of 4.45. For a while, it was much lower than that. But I think a lot of that had to do with him struggling, being lengthened out and stuff like that. So I think he'll be fine. Kirby Yates, a little bit of injuries. He was injured for a little bit. And then actually haven't used him too much, but he's got an ERA just under 4 at 3.90. But he's been a little bit unlucky because his expected FIP is much lower. I think he's a guy that the Dodgers see as a possible high leverage guy in the postseason. I think they still believe in him. He's given up some homers, and the splitter hasn't been as good as of late, like it was to start the season. But he still strikes out a ton of guys, and he's got a good fastball splitter mix, so I think he's going to be fine. But he hasn't been as good as the Dodgers would have liked. There's no doubt. He's a little in the middle, but he's got off to a really good start to the season. So those are my 4 players that are kind of in the middle. So after that, those are the most important kind of players for the second half. And I have, like I said, need to see improvement. So at the top, we already know it's Mookie Betts. So it's no secret that Mookie Betts this year, he's been one of the hot topics for the Dodgers all year for multiple reasons. But as of late, it's because we know he's having the worst offensive year of his career. So far, Mookie Betts, through one half, is hitting .244 with a .315 on base and a .381 slug. That gives him a weighted runs created plus of 95. So he has been actually an under-league average hitter. Now we know he's moved to shortstop this year full-time. He's been pretty good defensively. Actually has not been as good lately. In terms of outs above average, he's above average still well above average, and he's still been very good. But he has made a couple errors as of late that have kind of tanked the defensive numbers. So it hasn't necessarily been as elite, but I still think he's been fine. You watch him on TV, he looks really good out there. He's really calm. That's like something that not a lot of players have. You can see when the balls hits him, he doesn't panic. He has really quiet body language and hands and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's about Mookie's bat. He's hitting in the 2 spot in the lineup, and he's been bad for a while now. And at some point, the Dodgers are going to possibly have to consider moving him down. There are other guys like Will Smith or Pages that you could hit in the 2 spot. With the way Mookie's hitting right now, playing every day, he profiles more as an 8-9 hitter. So he is the biggest need to see improvements in the second half guy for me, because the team goes as Mookie goes, I believe. Of course, Shohei and Freddie, guys like that, they're the big three, but the team goes as Mookie goes, I believe. He's a team leader. He's an important piece for the Dodgers, and obviously him hitting second with Shohei and Freddie, he's sandwiched in between those two guys. A lot of pitchers are going to pitch around Shohei to get to Mookie, and the more and more that you struggle, the more and more you become an easy target. He still continues to make contact. He's not striking out too much. It's just been some of the hard hit numbers. He kind of hits a lot of pop-ups. He's been really bad against most breaking balls this year. So he's a guy who badly needed the second half. No All-Star game this year for Mookie. Take the time off. Take these couple days, whether you need to emotionally get away from the game. Maybe you need to go and lock in on your swing. Maybe he needs to go and see his old friend JD Martinez to give him some pointers. Whatever the case is, we need to see improvements from Mookie in the second half. Because if we get to September and Mookie still has an OPS around 700 or below that, the Dodgers are going to eventually have to move him down. You're just going to have no choice. So the Dodgers, if Mookie can improve his bat in the second half, you're going to see the Dodgers have a really good record in the end. Again, I don't think the whole year is, dependent on his bat. I think that the Dodgers still have a really good chance to repeat, but they need Mookie's bat to be better, especially if you're going to keep him in the 2 spot. Then after that, I'm going to go to Tommy Edman. Tommy could have went in, to me, the in the middle players, but because kind of like guys like Freddie and Teoscar, I kind of had those guys who sort of got off to good starts and have been cold. Tommy could have went in there, but he's been bad for a while now, and his numbers have got to actually a pretty bad spot. Again, another guy that I kind of goes under the radar, but Tommy Edman on the year, 223 batting average, 278 on base, 392 slug. That gives him a weighted runs created plus of 86. He is way below league average, and he's now gone from a cold stretch to not the best year to just having a bad year. So again, now he is kind of one of those guys for sure that I know has dealt with injuries all year, because he originally had an ankle injury, then recently he had a toe injury, and I know even though he came back from the ankle injury, he wasn't fully all the way there yet because they weren't playing him in center field as much. So he's been bad for a while now, and he normally is very good from the right side of the plate and hits for more power. He's been very bad from the left side as of late, and he hasn't been as good from the right side as he normally is. He's starting to get into a spot where the Dodgers are going to have to consider him just being like the full-time utility guy and not necessarily an everyday starter, where most people and the Dodgers would have him pencil in as either the center fielder or the second baseman or something like that. It's getting to a point where come trade deadline, if he still looks like that, they're going to have to make a move for someone to kind of replace his bat in the lineup, and then you kind of have Tommy pencil in as like a utility guy, play against lefties in center or at second base or something like that. If he was a little bit healthier, you would see more of the career norms, which is more of a league average hitter. And it really sucks because to start the season, he was just amazing. I mean, we remember those home runs he hit. I think he had like 8 home runs come mid-April, and right now I think he only has 10. So he's been very bad for a while now, hitting the ball on the ground a lot. So I think, again, another guy who can benefit from the All-Star break, try to get a little healthier, try to fix some things with the swing, come out in the second half, and everyone believes in Tommy Edman. And again, another guy that the Dodgers are going to need come postseason. So I think Tommy Edman will be fine ultimately. He's going to find other ways to help you win games, like on defense or on the base path. But the Dodgers definitely banked on him and his bat ticking up a little bit since they've acquired him, and he's been bad for a little bit now. So he's a guy I need to see improvements from. And then, of course, Tanner Scott, hot topic. He's definitely fallen into that classic reliever that gets killed by the fans on social media. He actually could have gone in the middle. Now, his ERA now is over 4, but there's been times where it's been much lower. He's had a lot of like up and downs throughout the year. Started off the year not great, blowing some games. Then he quickly kind of found his fastball command and was pretty good for a little bit. And then as of late, he blew a save in Milwaukee, and then, of course, he blew the save yesterday in San Francisco. He's a really weird guy. It's probably going to end up not being the best contract, considering how much they gave him for a reliever. The Dodgers don't tend to do that. But I still think he's going to have a big role come postseason. And, again, you're going to need Tanner Scott to win the World Series and go back-to-back. He's an odd pitcher because he is a two-pitch pitcher. He's left-handed. He's always been a guy throughout his career who walks a lot of hitters. Like I've talked about this before. Guys who go for strikeouts, and they kind of will not have the best command as a result of that, but it'll lead to strikeouts. They're nasty guys who are hard to hit anyways, so who cares if there's runners on base? It's kind of like the Blake Snell approach. This year, he's had the best command of his career and the lowest walk percentage and all that. But it's kind of led to more contact. There are times when he's a guy who pitches, he's at his best when he pitches up in the zone with the fastball and then has the slider off of that. There are just times where he just cannot get the fastball up. It's like literally Will Smith is standing up and for the target behind the plate, and he just throws the ball down the middle or low and inside, and it leads to these bloopers. So I do think there's been more unluckiness than just straight up bad pitching. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, when you're a reliever and when you're a closer, you're judged by getting those 3 outs. And when you don't get those 3 outs, the blame goes on you, unfortunately. It's one of the, things of being a reliever. But the reason he's in need to see improvements is because the Dodgers need him to win a World Series. Now, Alex Vesia is a left-handed reliever they have that has been better than him. So maybe the Dodgers kind of switch their roles, and Tanner Scott is on the lower on the totem pole, and then Alex Vesia is more of the high-leverage lefty reliever. I think the Dodgers are going to make a pretty decent move. I think if there's any big move they make at the deadline, it's out of the bullpen. We'll get into more trade deadline stuff later on in a couple weeks. But I think that if they could acquire a pretty good relief pitcher, like someone that could be a closer legitimately, and then you have Vesia kind of as your high leverage lefty reliever. Blake Trinan comes back. That's another guy. And then, you have all these kind of guys. Kopech maybe comes back. And then, Kirby Yates pitches a little bit better. There's a lot of ways they could go. And kind of like last year, they could have, just a solid bullpen throughout the regular season. But then come postseason, when some guys get back and are healthier, you can kind of have this dominant bullpen. I still think that is in the realm of possibilities. And Tanner Scott would be kind of bumped down to kind of a 6th, 7th inning guy for a left-handed reliever matchup guy, not necessarily the closer. And I think he could relish in that role. Just right now, he's as the closer, he's kind of in that role where you're judged on getting those 3 outs. And when you're giving up more contact and stuff like that, you're going to be kind of killed. You need to see improvement from him. Then I have Michael Conforto. I didn't have him too high on the list because I just ultimately have always thought, come the trade deadline, he would either not be on the team or the Dodgers would make a move to where he wouldn't be like a regular player. Now, he's been better as of late. He still, his numbers were so horrible that I don't think the Dodgers should be fooled by anything. They should still look for a bat or someone to replace him. But he's been horrible and throughout as a whole on the season. I know he's been better as of late, so maybe he'll trend in a better spot come the deadline. Maybe the Dodgers believe they can get something out of him going, the rest of the way. But I kind of believe he's either going to be off the team or just limited to like a bench role. So that's kind of my thoughts on Conforto. And then Dustin May, another guy in this category, is kind of a similar role. And he's a guy who also needs to be careful with, obviously he's not trying to pitch bad, but the Dodgers can quickly go from no depth in the rotation to a lot of depth. Obviously that happens when your entire rotation gets injured. They've been so injured for a long time, so nobody's going to just believe that it'll stay that way. You still have the fear of guys getting injured again in the back of your head. Snell comes back soon. You have a lot of better options than Dustin May, because at that point you would have Yamamoto, Shohei Ohtani's in the rotation, Snell and Glasnow, that's 4. Emmett Sheehan has looked really great, and then Clayton Kershaw is obviously not getting debunked to the bullpen, and he's also been very good. That's 6 guys right there. Where does that leave Dustin May? You got to pitch better. You got to give the Dodgers some kind of make it a harder decision on them. I don't know if Dustin May gets DFA'd or something like that. Does he find himself in a trade? I don't think any of that would happen just because the Dodgers aren't going to just give away depth for no reason. They could need Dustin May come the end of the year. So, but at the end of the day, you just got to be better. He's got an ERA close to 5. So, of the few Dodger pitchers who have been not injured, he's been very bad. Now, there's been value in him then in the fact that he has been healthy every 5th day for the first time in his career. But at the end of the day, the Dodgers are trying to repeat, and they got to put the best pitcher out there they possibly can. So he needs to be better. And then I have Anthony Banda at the bottom. Again, bullpen guy. His ERA has not been good. He's kind of struggled at times throughout the year. It's mostly been a bad year, but there were times that he's pitched better. Again, I think that the Dodgers could acquire someone. They have Alex Vesia, Tanner Scott I still like better than Banda, as well as Jack Dreyer. So Banda might be finding his way off of a roster at some point because of all the lefties that the Dodgers could have. But he's just got to be better because his numbers haven't been great. Him and Dustin May were a part of the reason that they lost that game on Friday. Then on my last category, I have incomplete. Mostly injury guys, of course. It's headlined by Glasnow and Snell. Glasnow came back and pitched against the Brewers. We talked about it. He actually looked pretty good. So that's all good. And then Blake Snell has continued to throw his rehab games. I think he threw his first the other day, threw 3 innings, got up to 97. Then after that, I have Hae-Sung Kim. The only reason it's incomplete, I could have actually put him in good players because he has now played in 48 games, like I said. But and he's hitting like close to 350. So in the times we've seen Hae-Sung Kim, he's been amazing. The only reason it's incomplete is because I don't think Hae-Sung Kim is a 350 hitter with a 900 OPS. I think if he was an everyday player, he was in there every day, like guys like Mookie and Freddie, his numbers wouldn't be as great. But he's been pretty good and he's pretty valuable, and most people want him in the lineup every day. I tend to agree with that. Sometimes his swing decisions are not great, and there's sometimes where he looks like an automatic strikeout. So come postseason, it will depend where he's been at for me. I would like him to be the everyday second baseman, but there are some times where I think I don't know if he should face lefties. He kind of can't hit the ball up, but he makes decent contact. He's very fast and athletic. I've always talked about Dodgers have a good lineup. If they have 1 or 2 hitters at the bottom of the order that aren't so great, but they can help you win in other ways, that's fine. Then after that, Blake Trinan, Michael Kopech, Roki Sasaki, all relievers or starters like Sasaki who have been injured. Sasaki was actually not pitching great before he got injured. There were reports from Dave Roberts that we could see him late August. So again, that'd be just interesting to see with all those guys, how could they use certain guys in Sasaki. I don't know if Sasaki's going to get any postseason starts at this point. We'll see where the rehab is and how he looks when he comes back and all that. Obviously, Trinan and Kopech. Trinan actually looks like he's going to be back soon, as well as Blake Snell. Kopech, probably won't see him till September. All guys who have pitched well when they've been out there, for the most part, they just haven't been out there. And then Dalton Rushing is the last guy I have. He's the backup catcher. Again, guys like Miguel Rojas, Kike Hernandez, like bench guys. Obviously, Dalton Rushing is the backup catcher. It's kind of not fair to grade them. They're not everyday players. They're in there to, give guys rest. They're depth guys. I think Rushing's fine. I think he's going to be a really good, big league player. At some point, the Dodgers will probably have to make a decision about trading him or something because it's kind of not fair to have a guy as talented as him be a backup. Dodgers could probably get a decent player for him, some kind of, prospect, reliever or something. He's a really talented guy, but obviously with Will Smith, he's not really going to play much. Maybe the Dodgers like to go that trend or role that some teams do of having 2 good catchers, especially Rushing is young, so he can give a lot of, days off to Will Smith, who is still very young, but at the end of the day, Will Smith is the second best catcher in baseball, so it's unfortunate for Dalton Rushing. I like him defensively. I always thought Rushing was supposed to be an offensive catcher who wasn't that great behind the plate. It's actually not the case. He's, I don't know if he grades out well framing, but he's a very good thrower behind the plate. He's very athletic, it seems. He's got that perfect catcher body where he's like 5'10". He's like a fire hydrant. He's like built like he's strong, short, stocky guy. not stocky in terms of fat. He's just like short, muscular guy, but he's got a good arm behind the plate. He's athletic, and there's no doubt in the big league level he can hit, I think. It's just hard to go from an everyday minor leaguer crushing the ball in AAA to now you're a backup player who plays basically twice a week. That's just difficult for anybody. Just like guys like Miguel Rojas and Kike don't play every day. I think both of those guys have been below league average, Kike and Miguel Rojas. But at this point, Miguel Rojas, you're going to use him as someone to play, shortstop on some days, mostly third and second, and face lefties. Same thing with Kike. So those are fine guys. A lot of Dodger fans don't like Miguel Rojas. I don't know if it's because all that old Jazz Chisholm stuff with the shoes. Most baseball fans know what I'm talking about. I don't really have anything wrong with Miguel Rojas. I think, he's a fine player. Plays good defense normally where he's at. He's older at this point in his career, so some people want him DFA'd. If the Dodgers got rid of him at some point, I wouldn't, be crying over it, but some people seem to hate Miguel Rojas every time he hits a home run or something like that. But and actually decent as of late. I think he's been the Dodgers' best hitter in the month of July, or one of the best hitters, which is good because Max Muncy just went out, so he's going to be in there against lefties. So Miguel Rojas is what he is. He's a 36-year-old veteran. So that's it. So that's all the players I have. Like I talked about, Shohei, Will Smith, Andy Paz. Probably the Dodgers' 3 best players, as well as Max Muncy, and then, of course, Freddie Freeman. Yamamoto has been their ace. It's going to be an interesting second half. We all know the Dodgers have had a ton of injuries. Looks like Blake Snell and Blake Treinen are going to come back right after the All-Star break. We'll see if it's right when the second half starts on Friday against the Brewers. I don't think... maybe Treinen could be activated during the Milwaukee series. I'd say definitely the next series. The following week, I think the Dodgers play the Twins. And then I think it's the Red Sox, I want to say. By the time the Dodgers get to Boston or Cincinnati, Blake Snell will have returned. So at that point, it's hopeful that you have Shohei obviously in the rotation with Yamamoto. And then you have Snell and Glasnow that have returned. Some really good returns. So that's pretty much all my thoughts on the Dodgers' first half. They have 2 more wins than they did last year at the first half, so they've been slightly better. It's been two very similar years the last 2 years. Obviously, the Dodgers won the World Series in 2024, but people remember it wasn't their classic season. If you go back a few years, right? 2019, they won 106 games, I think. 2021, same thing, 106 games. 2022, 111. 2023, they won 100 games. Last year, they won 98. Again, I know other fan bases would hear that and think that's crazy. It was not as dominant as a regular season. A lot of that is because of the injuries, no doubt. The pitching injuries. It's hard to have a good pitching staff when all your guys are injured. But they've had very similar seasons, I think, the last 2 years. Both years, the starting pitchers were just destroyed with injuries, like crazy injuries. Both years, they had the best offense in the NL, pretty much, and they've continued that this year. Both years, Max Muncy got injured, and he won't be returning until August. That's actually very ironic. Same thing. Max Muncy got hurt last year. He played more this year. Muncy last year got hurt in May, and we didn't see him until August. Obviously, Muncy was healthy until July this year, but still, it's going to be a pending return for Muncy come August. Same thing as last year. And then they're awaiting other guys to be injured, injuries to come back. So very similar seasons. They also back-to-back years go into the All-Star break pretty cold. Last year it was in Detroit where I think they got swept and walked off a couple times. And just completely embarrassed going into the second half. Similar vibes this year. Now, like I said, they did make up for it with those 2 wins, against the Giants. But very similar seasons so far. I'm not exactly sure what the Dodgers are on pace to win. What's their win total that they're on pace for? Google search has them around 95, 96 wins, which is what they're projected for. So, again, that's very good. Mid-90s, stuff like that. I think that that sounds pretty accurate. But that could tick up if more guys come off the injury list and they get hot. So that's pretty much all my thoughts on the first half. If I had to give the Dodgers a grade for the first half, I'd probably give them a B. I know it's kind of harsh standards. I think that's fair as Dodger fans. For the most part, it's been very good offense. They've overcome a lot of their injuries, but there have been times that the offense does go a little cold, and then the pitching has not been great. Again, I know a lot of that's the injury, so I don't want to just act like they've been completely bad and guys have been bad, but they need some improvements in the second half. We'll see what the trade deadline brings, if anything at all. They're kind of trending in a spot where the deadline could bring not much on the starting pitching wise. You know, the Dodgers might be in a spot where they see the guys who are due to return and think that's going to be our trade deadline acquisitions, Tyler Glasnow and Blake Snell. Might need to look into more offensive acquisitions more than I would have thought a few weeks ago. And right now, it's probably the bullpen that's at the top of their list. So, but like I said, closer to the trade deadline, I'll make videos, and I'll talk about guys that are good fits, realistic options, you know, guys I would like to see them trade for, you know, stuff like that. So, as always, thank you guys for listening. It's been a pretty good first half of the season here at Talking Blue that I've done a podcast. I know that there's been a lot going on since I had to go to the hospital and stuff, but I really appreciate all you guys for following along. It's been a really fun first half, and I'm really excited for the second half. There's going to be a lot going on. I hope you guys enjoy the All-Star break. Enjoy the Home Run Derby. Obviously, no Dodgers in it this year. We saw Teoscar win it last year. Enjoy the All-Star game. We're going to see a lot of Dodgers. Yamamoto won't pitch in the game, but Kershaw will. Who knows? That might be the last time you get to see Kershaw pitch in an All-Star game, so enjoy that. Obviously, Freddie, Will Smith, and Shohei will be in the game, starting in the game. So it's all going to be fun. It's exciting. Enjoy the All-Star break. Enjoy some time off from watching Dodger games. We'll be back on Friday, playing the Brewers again. So probably won't preview that series because I just previewed the Brewers, but we'll be back to recap that series. We'll see if I decide to do any more podcasts. There's not much else to talk about. I kind of went through everything. Like I said, in the near future, it's going to be trade deadline season. Once the All-Star break ends and the season starts up again, it's just full head of steam trade deadline talk. You know, I think it's less than 3 weeks away. The trade deadline is on a Thursday. So I think this Thursday, the day before games will begin for the second half, I think we'll only be 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. So there's going to be a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff coming out here on Talking Blue. Like I said, you can follow my personal X at Talking Blue Nick. I have a ton of Dodger stuff coming out on there. Stuff I've been posting. I'm going to post more stuff, more info later. Stuff about Yamamoto, Shohei, Mookie, all that kind of stuff. Go to my Twitter, go to my X, and read all that stuff. You can follow us. You can get this podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you prefer to watch. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss any notifications and any of the videos dropping. Follow us on TikTok as well. I'm going to have a lot of videos coming out on there. A lot of people like when I put together those videos that I do, kind of like the latest one I had was big strikeouts from the 2024 championship run. So a lot of people like those kind of highlight videos. If you want to see more of that, let me know. Follow us on Reddit. Get into this conversation on there. I love talking to guys on Reddit. Talking to you guys on Reddit. A lot of you guys are very insightful, so I appreciate that. So thank you guys again. It's been a fun first half. I can't wait for the second half to begin on Talking Blue regular season. We're going to talk about all of it. Looking for the Dodgers to get hot in the second half. So we will see you guys over the weekend, probably to recap the Dodgers-Brewers series. So enjoy the All-Star break, everybody.